Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the pilot to Lucifer, which aired on Fox this week. It is based off the comic series by Neil Gaiman, which is the spin-off of Sandman. This show is sort of in the vein of iZombie, in which it's very, very, very different from the source material. But they have enough charm in the show that they're hoping to convert those who may be upset that they're not following the comic book storyline and instead are just taking the comics as inspiration and creating an enjoyable procedural show. Now, a lot of people really liked this pilot, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer and say that I really didn't like the pilot. I enjoyed the pilot. I think it's going to be a very enjoyable show. The problem I have with Lucifer as a pilot is there's a couple things. One of them is the lack of any explanation of Lucifer's motivation for him doing anything in this show. Two is the premise. Disclaimer, I've never read the Lucifer comic book. I mean, Sandman is a series I also haven't read yet, which I know is blasphemy. I just haven't read it. So I'm pretty sure that Lucifer doesn't come to Earth and then decides to take up a position with the LAPD. But the premise just, to me, kind of feels a little lazy. It feels like you have the character of Lucifer, and the best thing they could come up with is he's going to help solve some cases. So, for me, that's another issue with it. It really does feel like they're not reaching to the potential that this kind of story could be. And the third thing is just a nitpick for this episode is they hammer you over the head with how many times they make a joke about his name, that he's the devil. It's just, it kind of gets really overbearing. I'm pretty sure every 5 minutes of the show had a joke about it. And it was like, yes, I get it. He's the devil. Your show's called Lucifer. Can we possibly move on? What I did find really interesting about the pilot was the character of Chloe, who's an actress that has been on Hawaii Five-0 and Chicago Fire, and I do really like her. And she does tend to play these very sarcastic characters, and I think she was the most interesting thing about the pilot. I think the fact that she's completely immune to Lucifer's charms is really interesting, and I want to see how that develops. But another issue with the premise of this, I can't help but feeling like this just seems like a cop show formula that we see in so many network shows. It's the really eccentric, charming guy who's not associated with the police, but he has an ability to help the police, and he's teamed up with a actual officer who's sort of no nonsense, doesn't care for the person's charms, but ends up getting involved in them. And I mean, you can kind of look at this and see this in shows like another Fox show, Sleepy Hollow, or Castle, or Bones. You can stretch it out to Elementary, or Sherlock, or any of those things. So it just kind of feels like it doesn't really feel special, and his abilities are also really weird because he basically can make you say anything. So it's essentially playing detective with cheat codes. So throughout the episode, I was wondering, why doesn't his first question every time he meets someone is like, hey, did you kill this person? It's like, wow, okay, so I guess the investigation part isn't really going to be a big thing with the series. I had mentioned Lucifer's motivations, and this is a really big problem I have with the show, is because Lucifer takes a vacation from hell. Why? It's never really discussed. Lucifer sort of invests himself in this sinner and helps her out, and then is really, really affected when she's killed. Why Lucifer has suddenly taken an interest in people is never really discussed, and why he cared about this girl who he had maybe like 3 or 4 lines with is also really never discussed. I think if they really wanted to get this over, I think they needed to make it that Lucifer had a very personal connection with her, and that he really did care for her. I do another sort of recap show on rewatching the show Fringe, and one of the things about the pilot is the main character's love interest is pretty much killed off, and she is searching through his memories. It's a science fiction show, and finds out that he's actually a traitor. And one of the reasons that is so impactful in the episode is because this isn't just some random crime. It's someone that is very close to her, and we see that person being very close to her. So when she kind of does go to these great lengths, and she does break protocol, and she does things that she wouldn't normally do, you understand why she's doing it. It's because she's doing it to help the person that she loves. And I think we kind of needed something like that with Lucifer. Now, it doesn't need to be a love interest, but it needs to be someone that we see is very personal to her. And I think helping to secure her a record deal isn't really as personal as I think it should be. It also, because Lucifer sort of has this sort of shield around him where he kind of just makes charming, sarcastic replies to people, I don't really get the sense that he really does become very connected with people. So I think there is a really lack of backstory of things that have happened. Now, maybe we'll be getting those answers as the show goes on, but I just feel like you kind of needed that for the pilot, and I didn't really get that. So the whole time I'm just sort of questioning myself, why is he doing any of this? Everything with Chloe, including her daughter, the interesting idea of her ex being another detective, played by the great Kevin Alonso, who totally butchered his last name, but he's an actor who's been on True Blood, and he was also in the 2nd season of Arrow, so I'm excited to see him on another show. It's not a bad show at all. In fact, I think I'm going to really enjoy it. I just think this pilot was missing a few things that, again, I hope are explained later on in the series. Like, hopefully, episode 2. But yeah, so it was enjoyable. I think they were trying a little too hard to get some of the gimmicks over, and I am intrigued over the idea that there must be order, in that he's given a warning at the end that if he cares for people, maybe the order of heaven and hell could, be off balance. I think anything that is sort of more mythology-based and not just a case of a week is going to be good. But I think Lucifer and Chloe had really good chemistry, and I think they're going to be very enjoyable to watch. I think the big question is, I have no doubt that they can make an enjoyable first season, but like I said before, this chemistry kind of does remind me of Sleepy Hollow and how that show pretty much fell apart in its 2nd season, so it'll actually be interesting to see if they can keep this dynamic up. But yeah, I'd give it a B-. I think there's a few things, like I've said, that I kept it from being really good, but I think they have the right actors in place. They have the right chemistry in place. I think they just need to fill in that backstory and hopefully give us some more interesting things to just the case of the week. So that's it from me, and I'll see you guys next week to cover Lucifer Season 1, Episode 2.